the psychotic assassin that never misses. Who's Bullseye? We're about to find out in this video. To start off, Bullseye's first appearance is in Daredevil issue 131. So Bullseye's real name and his real origin has never been clear. You could say he's as mysterious as the Joker, and that's saying something. He went by 3 different names, which are Lester Jangles, Leonard McLean, and Benjamin Poindexter. One of those names is his real name, or most likely none of them are. We'll keep it simple and just call him Bullseye throughout the video. As far as his childhood, it's not really clear due to Bullseye being known as a liar that loves to switch up and change details about his past every time he mentions it. There are 2 possibilities that could give us a good idea of his past, and be aware that this is what I think. From mentioning his background multiple times, certain details correlate and show a bit of similarity, such as Bullseye's father being a bad dad, and his mother was no angel either, as far as the first possibility about his past. The second possibility is what Daredevil mentioned to Bullseye in a later comic, where Bullseye never even knew his father, and his mother was for the streets. Even with these possibilities, keep it with a grain of salt. No one knows Bullseye's true origin, but let's say for instance certain parts were real. I'm not saying they are or aren't. It will make some decent sense that led up to him becoming the sociopathic assassin he is these days though. One specific part was during his late teens. He was playing Major League Baseball and he was already offered scholarships left and right due to how good he was playing the sport, but he rejected all of them. This was also when he ended someone else's life for the first time. Bullseye was doing great as a pitcher to the point he played abnormally after he was striking out so many batters and he got bored. There was one certain batter that talked trash. This made Bullseye want to have a little fun in his terms, and he aimed the baseball straight for the batter's head. After he threw the baseball, he instantly ended the batter's life. Bullseye showed he didn't care at all, and he enjoyed it as he gave a smirk. He loved the fact that he can control life and death with his abilities. The incident caused Bullseye to get kicked out of the baseball league, and his lawyer reduced the charges to manslaughter. With his valuable skills, Bullseye was sent to the military, exceeded in his training in marksmanship, close quarter combat, and survival tactics. Higher ranked operatives noticed how much of a gem he was. He's actually a gem with a bit of dirt on him due to his issues with having discipline, but he was still shipped to Nicaragua anyway. This is where he crossed paths with the Punisher. They fought each other and he held his own against the Punisher, giving him a challenge. Bullseye was lucky enough to escape him by the time the fight ended. Bullseye soon abandoned the military, went to New York, and he eventually got his iconic black and white costume as he wanted to be an assassin. He also worked under Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. Now, I'm gonna move on to what we all know is concrete in the comics, starting with his first meeting with Daredevil. Once again, just remember that what we went over in his past could be or isn't entirely true. I'm going over what I think his past could be that I just pieced together. It's all still up in the air what his true origin is, like the Joker's true origin. Alright, since that's out of the way, Bullseye was trying to make a name for himself in the city as a hired assassin, and started off by getting the attention of Daredevil by throwing a grenade right in front of him while he was swinging in Hell's Kitchen. This stunned Daredevil and caused him to fall into an alley where him and Bullseye would meet for the first time. Bullseye wanted to make an example out of Daredevil by fighting him with the audience, so he let Daredevil follow him to a circus. Daredevil had trouble fighting him due to his senses not being as accurate as he would like after that grenade explosion, which led to Bullseye getting away. But once Daredevil's senses were fully recovered, he caught up to Bullseye right before he was about to take the life of a wealthy person who he threatened to get 100,000 from, and defeated him in their second encounter. This marked the foundation of Bullseye becoming Daredevil's arch nemesis. Sometime later, he was having hallucinations and headaches due to an undiagnosed brain tumor, and went on a crime spree, ending the lives of multiple people as his hallucinations caused him to believe that everybody he came across was Daredevil. Bullseye wanted to fight him so badly because he believed if he could beat Daredevil, he could regain his sanity. When they faced each other once again, Daredevil ended up being the winner, and it deepened the hatred Bullseye had for him. Later on, he had surgery and his brain tumor was removed. The court had to release him due to the possibility that the brain tumor was the main reason Bullseye was insane, but that wasn't the case. He went right back into committing crimes while working on the Kingpin, and you guessed it, he got his ass whooped by Daredevil again. At this point, after Bullseye found a way to escape custody again, even he knew his reputation as an assassin was in the crapper. He wanted to get some respect back, especially after getting his ass whooped by Daredevil more than twice. He soon found out Elektra took his place as Kingpin's assassin and replaced him. This didn't go well with Bullseye, and it resulted in him confronting Elektra about this in Daredevil issue 181. If people still think Bullseye is a joke, try to look up real quick how skilled Elektra is in the comics. That would tell you how deadly he is, besides him being some guy that can use any object as a weapon, as he took Elektra's life on the spot by besting her in combat and stabbing her with her own sai. Bullseye got hands, and this moment ended up becoming one of his most iconic moments in his career. Bullseye, while in disguise, followed Elektra as she was bleeding out and saw her die in Matt's arms at his doorstep. Then he followed Matt to the morgue to confirm his suspicions that Matt Murdock and Daredevil were the same person. Bullseye was on point as he could tell Matt figured out he was close by. Matt jumped as soon as he heard Bullseye's voice, confirming Bullseye's suspicions. Bullseye took this info and went to tell Kingpin, but Kingpin didn't believe him and thought Bullseye was a bit crazy. That's understandable considering Bullseye is a bit insane, plus who would expect a blind man to be an agile crime fighter at face value? He should have thought about this ahead of time by coming in with proof. With Kingpin not convinced Matt Murdock was Daredevil, Bullseye broke into Matt's home to try to end Matt's life, but a trap was already set as Matt was waiting for him in the dark as Daredevil. They fought across multiple rooftops until they were on a wire where Daredevil held Bullseye's arm. At this point, Daredevil was beyond depressed and angry, so he let Bullseye fall to his death. Bullseye ended up surviving the fall, but his spine would be shattered, paralyzing him. He couldn't move his arms, legs, or even talk. The only thing he could do was hate Daredevil more and more while he laid in his bed vowing that he would return to get his revenge one day no matter how long it would take for him to recover. Daredevil would meet up with Bullseye sooner than expected as he was going through the motions. He says Elektra's death wasn't what brought him there, but you could tell it's part of what's influencing his depression. What brought him there involved one of his cases and involved a little boy, and he wanted Bullseye to listen on what happened in that case. I gotta say, Frank Miller was cooking with Daredevil back then, but this issue stands out to me more as Daredevil had a gun and wanted to play roulette with Bullseye. I love how this issue goes over Daredevil's psyche with what happened to the little boy and him self-reflecting on his life, specifically the influence Matt's father had on him. All of this and more, Daredevil is venting to Bullseye while Bullseye couldn't do anything about it too with him being paralyzed. Then, come to find out, the gun was never loaded by the end of the story. If you guys and girls want to read it yourself, it's Daredevil issue 191. It's personally one of my favorite Daredevil moments. It's something about a hero venting to his arch nemesis, or they both are venting to each other, that makes the story so effing good to me. It's the fact that the hero and or the villain take a moment and are brought back down to earth to face the reality on whatever situation is going on. A good reminder that not every story is as simple as the hero beats the bad guy and that's it. No, it's more than that, and it breeds more character development no matter which side of the spectrum it is. You're reminded on why each party do what they do and what drives them to keep going. Plus, it's relatable, making readers understand who they're reading about on a deeper level. But enough about me going through that moment. A Japanese crime lord named Lord Darkwind eventually paid a visit to Bullseye and offered him the ability to move his body once again by giving him adamantium to fuse the pieces of his spine back together during experimental surgery in Japan. Bullseye accepted it, and with the adamantium, his durability skyrocketed, making him more of a threat than before. Lord Darkwind did want Bullseye to work under him as an assassin, but that wasn't gonna happen. As soon as Bullseye got his rhythm back, he traveled right back to New York City and went to Kingpin so he can get his old job back as his top assassin. But things didn't change as Kingpin still wanted Bullseye to destroy Daredevil to prove himself. Both of them would soon fight it out, but it'll be slightly different this time with Daredevil at a disadvantage as one of his arms were broken, and Bullseye had the upper hand on him. Bullseye had a gun aimed at Daredevil's head, but he decided not to pull the trigger. And yes, you guys and girls could say this is pure plot armor or it's pretty good storytelling, as Bullseye remembered the time Daredevil had a gun and played roulette with him when he was paralyzed. Bullseye admitted that he felt like trash due to the fact Daredevil didn't end his life then and just walked away. It gave him the impression that he just wasn't worth it anymore after everything he's done to him. He flipped it on Daredevil and started walking away, knowing that it would bother him, and let him know that every time he ends someone's life, he'll make sure Daredevil hears about it and regret not ending his life when he had the chance to. This infuriated Daredevil, and we get the typical part where the hero's about to end his arch nemesis permanently, but it doesn't happen as he's talked out of it or he remembers a lesson he learned in the past. During the time Matt had amnesia and forgot he was Daredevil, Bullseye came up with a plan to dress up as Daredevil in an effort to ruin Daredevil's reputation by embarking on a crime spree. He was a good actor as he was mimicking Daredevil's fighting style and mannerisms to convincingly deceive the public and law enforcement. Matt soon confronted Bullseye while he was dressed up in Bullseye's iconic suit. It was a complete reversal and he defeats Bullseye. Matt reclaimed his mantle and restored his sense of purpose. In a Daredevil story arc named Guardian Devil, Bullseye would make another return when he was hired by a man who was later to be revealed as Mysterio to kidnap a baby that was one of the main keys of the storyline. He gave Daredevil another scar for life by taking Karen Page's life when he shielded Daredevil from one of his billy clubs Bullseye threw. That's another love interest of Daredevil that Bullseye took from him. At this point, if this was real life, this man would be 6 feet under a long time ago. There's no way a man like Bullseye would still be walking around after all the things he's done. Bullseye is definitely Daredevil's version of the Joker. Fast forward to his time in the Thunderbolts. Bullseye was recruited into a new iteration of the team led by Norman Osborn after the Civil War event happened. Bullseye was a loose cannon until he got humbled a bit by a character named American Eagle. I'd say he gave Bullseye a worse ass whooping than Daredevil ever did due to him having superhuman strength. To make the ass whooping even worse, Bullseye had nanites within his body and it activated when Moonstone thought he went rogue after stabbing 2 military soldiers in the head. He was electrocuted and took extreme head trauma by American Eagle right after, paralyzing him to the point he couldn't speak again. But unlike before, this was only temporary and he was out of action for a little bit. Bullseye continues his role within Norman Osborn's team of Thunderbolts during the Secret Invasion storyline. The Thunderbolts confront the Skrull invasion with Bullseye's lethal skills proving useful during the alien threat. He used a missile launcher to take down a Skrull posing as Yellow Jacket by firing a rocket through its eye. After the Skrull invasion was stopped, Osborn resigned from the leadership of the Thunderbolts and orchestrates the elimination of Songbird. Moonstone, Bullseye, and Venom attempt to assassinate Songbird, but Swordsman helps her escape. A bit later, Bullseye witnessed Swordsman confront Osborn, resulting in Osborn taking Swordsman's life. Osborn soon forms the Dark Avengers and Bullseye joins the new team as Hawkeye. He pretended to be a hero while secretly indulging in his psychopathic tendencies. The Dark Avengers didn't do anything that important, but Bullseye did do a couple things. The last one is gruesome and downright petty in my opinion, such as lethally shooting Morgan Le Fay even though she resurrected anyway with an army of demons for the team to have a tough time with. Ending the life of a pilot in a rogue Hulkbuster armor, ending a woman's life right after he rescued her because he felt some type of way by her remarks. Bullseye had to destroy a news helicopter in an effort to get rid of any evidence of him taking that woman's life. Here's a bonus one. Some of you guys and girls might not notice, but he assassinated the Sentry's wife, Linda Reynolds, and made it look like she took her own life. Osborn ordered Bullseye to do it so he can manipulate the Sentry. That's pure evil right there. But don't worry, karma has a funny way of getting you right back. During the beginning of the Shadowlands story arc, Daredevil was possessed and in charge of the Hand. Bullseye was in Hawkeye and the Dark Avengers were no more. He pretended to have a cardiac arrest to escape custody and went back to Hell's Kitchen to fight Daredevil. He soon confronts Daredevil, and I gotta say, this is my favorite Daredevil suit, especially with the deadly wristbands he got on. Freaking badass, and I know Matt is possessed, but damn, this is still a cool design. Daredevil ordered his hand ninjas to attack Bullseye, and he actually held his own and took out all the ninjas, which is no small feat, only leaving Daredevil left to fight. This fight ended the way we all expected, but worse, as Daredevil ended Bullseye's life in the same iconic pose Bullseye ended Elektra's life years ago. Bullseye wouldn't stay dead though, as he was later resurrected by Lady Bullseye as she used her knowledge of the Hand's resurrection rituals to bring him back to life. But his body was far too damaged, and Bullseye was left incapacitated, losing all of his senses except his sight. Despite his limitations, and confined within a specialized iron lung, Bullseye orchestrated attacks on Daredevil through proxies like Claw, Coyote, and Ikari, seeking revenge from behind the scenes. Daredevil discovered Bullseye's location and during a confrontation, destroyed the support structure of the facility, causing Bullseye to fall into chemicals that rendered him blind, leaving him a prisoner within his own body. After the 2015 Secret Wars event, Bullseye returned through a covert project that produced multiple clones of him, each inheriting his lethal skills and an unhinged mentality. The clones were unleashed into New York City and initiated a spree of chaos. Other heroes like Spider-Man and Iron Man had to get involved too, while Elektra tracks Bullseye down. Bullseye lures Elektra to a rundown theater where he shows a reenactment of her own death at his hands, forcing Elektra to relive her most traumatic experience. She encounters the original Bullseye along with some of his clones, starting a battle between them. Elektra turns the tide of the fight into her favor after she manipulated Bullseye into ordering his clones to take each other out of the picture. By the time the fight ended, the original Daredevil comes in to help Elektra in defeating Bullseye, saving New York City in the process. Nowadays, he's not really doing too much. He's just a character who's there time and time again that doesn't have an important role in whatever story is going on. Let's move on to his skills and abilities. He could turn virtually any object into a deadly projectile and has peak precision. He has peak agility and reflexes. He's an expert in manipulation and psychological warfare. He has an adamantium-laced skeleton. He's an expert tactician and an expert in stealth and espionage. As far as his weaknesses, Bullseye's ego-driven desire for recognition sometimes leads him to engage in unnecessary fights rather than simply assassinating his targets. It makes him easy to be manipulated. His fixation on Daredevil can cloud his judgment, making him reckless and predictable when engaging him in combat. He's also deeply deranged and suffers from his severe psychopathy and obsessive tendencies. Moving on to nerd facts, in one of his most intense rage moments, Daredevil carved a Bullseye symbol to Bullseye's forehead. This actually happened in Daredevil Volume 2, Issue 49. And the last nerd fact is that Bullseye actually fought Deadpool but lost. I mean, if he can't even beat Daredevil, what makes him think he could fight Deadpool when he has a rapid healing factor? I don't know, he's more delusional than I thought. Moving on to personal thoughts, I never cared for Bullseye as a character in the comics, mainly because he's more of just a pawn or another henchman from my point of view. Whether he has an origin or not won't get me interested in him. He's kind of like if Victor Zsasz from Batman's Rogues Gallery and Hawkeye fused into one character. I was never interested in either of those characters either. I can say that the first time I was introduced to Bullseye was in Ben Affleck's Daredevil movie. That left me with a sour taste for the character, and I always seen Bullseye as a joke. Don't get me wrong, I did admit he's a good fighter earlier after he beat Elektra, but that's about it. I don't see what the hype is for him besides what we saw in Daredevil season 3, and now that he's coming back in Daredevil Born Again, maybe it'll get me interested in his character a bit more. That's the only iteration of Bullseye I could say I'm interested in. I want to see where his story goes in the MCU. Besides that, I'm like, it's whatever. If you guys girls like Bullseye as a character, then my thoughts about him shouldn't matter to you. All power to you, and I hope a story arc featuring Bullseye as one of the main characters in it will come soon for you to enjoy looking into. I do wonder if they're going to include Bullseye taking Karen Page's life in Born Again like he did in the comics. That would take me off guard, and if they do it right, that would really make me take Bullseye more seriously. Since Bullseye didn't confront Elektra in the MCU and Matt has a new love interest in Born Again, maybe that will happen since the show is supposed to be darker than the original show. Thinking about this right now is making me more excited for it actually. We'll see. But besides all that, if you were entertained, thought it was educational, like what I said, or maybe all the above, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, and turn on post notifications, especially if you're a new viewer. If you want to support the channel even more, my links will be down in the description box below, and I'll talk to you guys and girls later. Peace.